Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a really close look at a case that's, well, it's been casting a shadow for nearly 40 years
A
now.
long, long time.
Yeah, we're diving into the sources you've sent us, articles, inquest details, the family's own words about the disappearance of Ian Craig Hollis. He was just 16, vanished from Minto, New South Wales, way back in 1986.
Our goal here is to really unpack what we know, sift through the details, the big unanswered questions.
And maybe most importantly, shine a light on the family's fight. It's been decades, and they've faced incredible challenges, frankly, a real sense of injustice.
Definitely. And at the center of it all is Ian. When he went missing, May 16th, 1986, he was almost 17. The reports describe him, about 175 centimeters tall, solid build.
Olive complexion, brown hair, green or hazel eyes, that sort of thing.
Exactly. But more than just the physical description, the sources paint him as a pretty typical teenager for the area. He loved his footy, played for the Minto Cobras, went to local schools.
And crucially, everyone agrees he was really close to his mom, Shirley, and his sister, Debbie. This wasn't a kid likely to just take off, especially not without a word for this long.
No, the family's been absolutely adamant from day one this was completely out of character for him. The silence is the key thing.
Okay, so keeping that in mind, let's look at what happened just before he disappeared. That was a really significant incident, wasn't there?
There was. About 2 weeks before he vanished, Ian was involved in something pretty nasty. He was with a woman, Carlene Shaw, near a toilet block on Surrey Street in Minto,
Right.
and he was bashed and robbed by two men. We know he actually reported this to the police.
So a violent assault reported just a fortnight before he goes missing. How did that affect him?
Well, significantly, it seems.
Mhm.
The sources suggest he became really quite paranoid afterwards, worried about his safety.
Understandable.
Yeah. He was apparently so shaken that he stayed with his aunt for a bit, then his sister, before going back home. So the fact he was already feeling scared, vulnerable, it just makes his disappearance even more alarming.
It really does. It wasn't like he just wandered off carefree. He was anxious.
Exactly.
So he's in this state, and then comes the day he was last seen. There's a slight discrepancy in the date, maybe May 16th, maybe May 19th, 1986.
Yeah, different sources mention slightly different dates, but it's around that mid-May time frame.
Yeah.
We know he talked to his mom that morning,
Yeah.
which, fits with how close they were.
Okay. But the last place he was reportedly seen, according to one key account, was at Carlene Shaw's house, the same woman he was with during the bashing.
And this is where things get complicated and where the different accounts really start to diverge.
How so? What's Carlene Shaw's version of events?
Well, according to the reports, Carlene has always maintained that Ian was just a friend, someone who came over sometimes to play with her kids.
Okay.
She said she last saw him on May 19th, 1986. She claims he left her place in a brown car with some, quote, local boys who were dags. That's the story she apparently told the family when they started looking for him.
Right. Local boys who were dags in a brown car. But Ian's family, especially his mom Shirley, they had a very different take on Ian and Carlene's relationship, didn't they?
They absolutely did. Carlene is older, 22 at the time, and she was living with her de facto partner, the father of one of her kids.
Mm-hmm.
Shirley Hollis firmly believed and apparently stated she overheard Ian on the phone the day before he vanished, essentially giving Carlene an ultimatum, asking her to choose between him and her partner.
Wow. Okay. So the family believed it was a secret romantic relationship.
That's their strong conviction. Carlene, for her part, has denied any romantic involvement. But the sources do raise that question. If it was purely platonic, why would Ian supposedly only visit when her partner wasn't around?
It adds a whole layer of complexity, doesn't it? A potential motive, conflict.
It really does. It changes the whole context of his last known moments. And it makes the lack of immediate investigation even more, well, baffling and tragic.
And that lack of investigation, that's really at the heart of the injustice here, isn't it? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, this is probably the most devastating aspect for the family. The sources are clear for years. Basically, nothing happened. Ian's sister, Debbie, has spoken about this consistently. She says for 16 years, virtually no investigation took place.
16 years.
16 years. And the reason she was apparently given by police back then is just chilling. She was told, he's a 16-year-old. They always go missing.
Oh, that's just awful. They always go missing. Like, he didn't matter. Like, their pain didn't matter.
It's complete dismissal, isn't it? It suggests this mindset of just writing off a missing teenager as a runaway without looking any deeper.
And this wasn't just the family feeling ignored, right?
Yeah.
This delay was officially acknowledged later.
Yes, it was. Years later, at the 2010 coronial inquest, Deputy State Coroner Paul McMahon explicitly addressed it. He said there was, quote, no explanation for the delay, and it had hampered subsequent investigations.
Hampered subsequent investigations, I bet.
And even the detective who eventually took the case on, Detective Sergeant Michael Hales, admitted that the initial investigation and record-keeping were minimal to non-existent.
So 16 years, that crucial early period, the golden window, as they call it in missing persons cases, just lost.
Completely lost.
Yeah.
Demolished, really. Those first hours, first days, that's when you have the best chance. Fresh memories, potential evidence, a 16-year delay. It makes solving a case like this exponentially harder. It's a profound injustice to Ian and his family.
And while the police weren't investigating, what was the family doing? They weren't just sitting back, surely.
No way. They were doing everything they possibly could, basically acting as their own investigators. Debbie especially has been relentless for nearly 4 decades now.
Incredible.
Yeah, digging through old contacts, searching online. She maintained an old web page for years, just constantly trying to find anyone who knew anything.
And their mother, surely, keeping the same phone number.
For 40 years. 40 years, hoping he might call. It's heartbreaking. It just shows their incredible love and the huge burden they carried because the system failed them so badly at the start.
It really does. Their determination is unbelievable. So because of that massive delay, we're left with so many unanswered questions, especially around that last sighting.
Exactly. Let's go back to Carlene Shaw's story about the brown car and the local boys.
Right, the Dags.
Who were they? Did anyone ever identify them? Did the police ever track them down or even confirm if that car story was true? As far as the sources indicate, this key piece of her account remains unverified. It's a dead end in the public information.
Which is pretty crucial given it's supposedly how he left. And what about the bashing 2 weeks earlier? Any confirmed link?
It's still just speculation, really. Was it random? Was it a warning related to Carlene's partner, maybe? Or something else entirely?
The sources mentioned Carlene called the police during the bashing.
Yeah, which might suggest she wasn't directly setting him up for that attack. But who did it, why, and whether it's connected to his disappearance? Still unknown. It's another big question mark.
And then there was the information that came out at the inquest about Ian's personal life. That adds another potential dimension.
Right. The inquest heard testimony that Ian had told some friends he was gay and apparently told a youth worker about an incident involving prostitution in Cabramatta for drugs.
Okay.
So the sources explore whether that could somehow be linked to the bashing. Maybe it wasn't random. Maybe it was related to what was described as a potentially risky lifestyle or relationships he might have had.
And how does Carlene fit into that picture, if at all?
Again, it's just questions and theories presented in the sources. Did she know about this side of his life? Did the bashing have anything to do with it? We don't know. It just highlights more potential leads that probably went cold very quickly due to the lack of early investigation.
It feels like so many threads were just left hanging. What about other people who might know something? His best friend.
Terry Davis. Yeah, the family strongly believes Terry, who was 19 at the time, might hold crucial information. They spent a lot of time together.
Have they found him?
No. And that's another tragedy of the delay. The sources say the family has searched for Terry and his mother, Judy Davies, for years without success. Another potentially vital voice seemingly lost to time.
It's just layer upon layer of lost opportunities. Were there any leads about where Ian might have gone after he disappeared?
There were some intriguing, though unconfirmed, bits of information that apparently came to police later on. Suggestions he might have been seen up in the Northern Rivers area of New South Wales.
Northern Rivers? Like where?
Places like Lismore, Tialgum, Culgall, even Tenterfield. There was a specific mention he might have stayed at a youth hostel called Tulum near Tenterfield.
Anything else?
There was also information suggesting that maybe, shortly before he was reported missing, he'd been living with an older man, maybe 30s or 40s, who owned a light plane.
A light plane.
Yeah, and that they might have flown to Melbourne together around that time.
Wow. So, potential sightings miles away, talk of living with someone else, even interstate travel by plane, but none of it confirmed.
Exactly. Significant potential leads, but coming so late, they were incredibly hard to follow up definitively. It just underscores the mess caused by the initial inaction.
So, eventually the family's persistence pays off, and they get the coronial inquest in 2010, confirmed 2013. What did the coroner actually rule?
Well, coroner Paul McMahon did find that Ian Craig Hollis was deceased, likely on or about May 19th, 1986. So he accepted Ian didn't just run away and survive.
Okay, so he's ruled deceased, but what about how? Why?
And that's the gut punch for the family. The coroner made an open finding on the actual nature and cause of death.
An open finding. Can you explain what that means?
Sure. Basically, it means there just wasn't enough evidence presented at the inquest to say how Ian died or why he disappeared.
Right.
Was it foul play? An accident? Suicide? The evidence couldn't point definitively to any one conclusion, even though death was presumed.
So no answers for the family on the most important questions.
None. It's incredibly frustrating and leaves them completely in limbo. And from a practical standpoint, an open finding usually means the active police investigation stops. The file stays open, technically, but they aren't actively working it unless brand new, compelling information comes in.
It provides no closure at all.
Absolutely none. And sadly, Ian's case, particularly that initial dismissal as just another runaway teen, reflects a broader issue highlighted in the sources.
With how missing youth cases are sometimes handled.
Exactly. Statistics show teenagers, that 13-17 age group, are consistently overrepresented in missing persons figures in Australia. And that knee-jerk reaction Debbie encountered, they always go missing, well, it can cost critical time and cause immense lasting harm to families.
It's a systemic issue that needs addressing. Ian's story isn't unique in that awful initial response, even though the specifics are his own tragedy.
Precisely. And while his case isn't on some specific recent lists, like that 2023 North Coast one mentioned in the sources, because he vanished from Minto, his story just highlights how many unsolved cases there are across the state. Each one, a family waiting.
But Ian's family, they're not just waiting passively anymore, are they? Despite everything.
No, absolutely not. After nearly 40 years, their determination is, frankly, astounding. Debbie's dedication, even after being told to move on all those years ago, her mom Shirley's unwavering hope.
It's truly remarkable.
And now they're pushing forward in new ways. The sources mentioned Debbie's had some health issues recently, some strokes that have affected her speech, making her fight even harder.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, so recognizing this, she's decided, with some help, to pursue a different route.
Which is where the private investigator comes in.
Exactly. They've launched a GoFundMe campaign specifically to raise funds to hire a private investigator.
Trying to do the work themselves, essentially, that maybe should have been done decades ago.
That's the feeling you get. They explicitly mention wanting the investigator to try and find Terry Davis, his best friend, believing he may know things that we, as concerned loved ones, can never access. It really shows the emotional and financial toll this has taken, turning to the public for help to fund the search for answers.
And they're still using online platforms, too.
Yes, keeping the missing person Ian Hollis page on Facebook active, sharing his story, appealing directly for information, they haven't stopped.
Which brings us right back to why we're doing this deep dive. This family deserves answers. After almost 4 decades of uncertainty, of feeling dismissed, of searching, they deserve peace.
They really do.
So this is our call to action. To anyone listening, if you know anything about Ian Craig Hollis's disappearance from Minto in May 1986, anything at all, no matter how small you think it is, please come forward.
That tiny detail, that memory you've held onto, something you heard back then, it could be the missing piece. It could finally break this case open for Shirley and Debbie.
You can call the Macquarie Fields Police Station directly. The number is 9605-0425.
That's 9605-0425. Or, if you want to remain anonymous, you can always call Crime Stoppers. That number is 1-800-333-1000.
1-800-333-1000. Please make that call. Share this deep dive. Share the family's Facebook page, the Missing Person Ian Hollis page.
And if you can, consider looking up their GoFundMe. We should mention it's organized with assistance from Sibling Minds, the podcast. But the funds are directly for the family's effort to hire that private investigator. Any help supports their push for truth.
Let's help keep Ian's memory alive. Let's support this family who has fought so hard for so long against unbelievable odds. Someone out there knows something.
It's a haunting case, isn't it? Conflicting stories about his last moments, that earlier violent assault, the questions around relationships, the mystery brown car, those unconfirmed sightings.
All compounded by that massive initial failure to investigate, leading to an open finding that provides no answers.
But beyond the mystery, it's a story of incredible family love and resilience. Debbie and Shirley are just extraordinary in their dedication. So as we wrap up, maybe just think about the human cost here. Every missing person matters. Every family deserves answers, deserves a proper investigation from the start.
And hold on to that thought. Someone, somewhere, likely knows what happened to Ian Craig Hollis. Maybe it's someone listening right now, sharing his story, making a call. You could be the one to finally end this family's decades of pain.
Keep Ian in your thoughts. Share his story. Let's hope this time the answers finally come.